పెట్టుకోపని ఉంది కదరా లేదా
ಬುದ್ಧಿ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ವಾಸು.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ವಾಸು.
Okay, friends, good morning to everyone. We are waiting for Dr. Bishwas from the Indian Institute of Soil Science to join us. He'll be the first speaker. I just had a word with him about 10 minutes ago. He'll be joining, as well as Dr. Akil from ICRAF. He will also be joining us now. So let me do a quick follow-up with them. And Dr. Jitendra from GIZ is here, so he will also initiate the program. But Jitendra, I just want you to wait for a couple of minutes till I confirm with Dr. Akil and Dr. Bishwas about their participation.
Yes, Siti.
Okay.
Hello. Hello.
Dr. Bishwas, I was trying to call you.
Actually, in my division, there was two scientists who got COVID-19. So I just was talking to them. They are suffering for last 5 days. Still, it is there.
I hope they are well.
I am well. But he belongs to the husband wife both belong to my division, and they are suffering for the last 5-6 days. So he called me, so I was talking to him.
Are they recovering?
They are recovering, but this time I don't know. In between, about 6 months back, people are recovering within 5 days. But now they have gone more than 7 days, but they are still there. Some symptoms are still there. Coughing, sneezing are still there.
Okay. Dr. Priyadarshini is also here from Pune. They have found a new subvariant of Omicron in Pune recently. There are some 7 cases there.
Oh,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah. How is it going, doctor?
It's fine. So far, so good.
Okay. And now they're saying that Covishield may not be as effective on the new variant. Yeah, so
let's see how it goes.
So Jitendra, can we start?
Yes. Yes, Chiti, we can
Yes.
start this.
Yes, please. Please, Paul.
Yeah. So, good morning, all. I'm Jitendra. I'm from GIZ India. I welcome you all for today's inaugural session for the Indian Biochar and Bioresource Network. This is first after formation of Indian Biochar and Bioresource Network. We are doing this first session to introduce. So today, basically, we are presenting what Indian Institute of Soil Science, their research and crop trials, and ICRAF, our project with ICRAF, what are their learnings and experience on biochar, followed by presentation on GIZ initiatives, actions, and learnings on biochar and what GIZ is doing and what are the further plans. So this is a brief agenda. So I request Kshitij to give the introductory note on today's session. Over to you, Kshitij. You are mute, Kshitij. You are mute.
Sir, namaste, Kshitij sir.
बाद में.
Yeah, sorry. This technology is always difficult.
Sir, namaste, sir.
Namaskar, namaskar. So we have 77 participants. Good morning to all of you. And I also see familiar faces, people or friends who have been friends for long, people who have just joined in and have been part of the network, Biochar network. And so it's a relational platform for people who are committed to biochar as well as bioresources in an integrated farming system basis, as well as on the principles of circularity in agriculture. So I welcome all of you. This network, the India Biochar and Bioresources Network, is an outcome of a continued conversation, between Revitalizing Rain-Fed Agriculture Network, and I'm sure you heard of Revitalizing Rain-Fed Agriculture Network. It's a national network working very closely with the National Rain-Fed Area Authority of India, and it's been on since 2006. So the Revitalizing Rain-Fed Agriculture has been in constant discussion with GIZ and other colleagues the last couple of years on how to make best of existing efforts on biochar in India, biochar as well as bioresources in India. And this is a culmination of this long discussion between the two entities. The network itself is hosted in Karnataka, initially hosted by Sneha Kunja. Sneha Kunja is an organization working to protect Western Ghats and the coastal areas of Karnataka. And it's ably led by people who are experts in the topic. And so Sneha Kunja, the Revitalizing Rain-Fed Agriculture Network, as well as GIZ got together in the creation of this national platform. And this national platform took the form of what we today call IBBM, or the India Biochar and Bioresources Network. And why are we contextualizing this in the larger reality of bioresources? It's because, number one, of climate change, the situation that we are in. It's the era of the Anthropocene, as well as our own contribution to atmospheric carbon is immense. And we were looking at agriculture, and with the land use, loss of biodiversity, with the chemical intensive farming, etc., the contribution of agriculture to climate change is more than 30%. And in addition to that, we have this recent phenomenon of biomass burning in India. And it is just not in India, so it's really not to blame the farmers as such, because I think all of us are part of a system, an overbearing system, which is based on disposing this farm residues as soon as possible, and without much of an income, farmers are forced to burn their bioresidue, the farm residue. The biomass production in India as of today is more than 500 million metric tons per annum, and it is said that less than half of it is being used for productive purposes, including fodder, And so which means that more than 250 to 300 million metric tons are inadequately or inappropriately disposed. And so invariably, when I say inappropriately disposed, invariably, the carbon out of these farm residues will escape into the atmosphere. So this is the larger reality of how our biomass is, being treated in a manner which is extremely inappropriate. Sabya, good morning. Sabya heads the RRA, and I just saw his message, so I'm responding to him. And so the IBBM was started in December of 2021. In about 5 months' time, it's been able to dive deep into the topic and work on a lot of issues on the issue of biochar and bioresources. There are 3 aspects to this network. The first, of course, it's the knowledge system itself. It's inquiring into existing knowledge systems, and also look at practices around the world. The second is on the application side. So the practitioners side of it, which I would call is the social dimension. The social dimension of biochar and bioresources use in India. And the third would be around research. And so there is quite a bit of research already. And today we have 2 experts on the topic who will be speaking to us. So overall, IBBM was much required because there have been very few national level efforts on these specified issues so far. A lot of local issues, but far in between. So there was no convergence as such, which has led to, policy influence on these 2 particular issues. So IBBM is very timely in a lot of ways, and the network is gathering steam, and more members getting into the network. And so very quickly, 2 or 3 points on what has been able to be achieved in the past 4 or 5 months. Number one, there's a comprehensive data of the history and the protagonists, including researchers and practitioners of biochar and bioresources in India. So there's quite a bit of compilation that's happened of the work in India so far, as well as from around the world. The second is, the identification of foundational stakeholders. This is the foundational period. We are still in the foundational period. And before we actually take off, to meet our full potential, the identification of foundational stakeholders has been going on. And we've met a lot of organizations. And this particular inaugural workshop is also part of, the foundation, the building on the foundation aspect of IBBM. The third achievement is on the creation of communication and outreach documents. And so we have just also been able to put a website together and put it on the web. It's ibbm.org.in. And just for us to view this. I think, let me come back to this in a bit. Yeah, here it is. So the website has been, the landing page of the website has been created. And it talks about what we are. As a matter of fact, one of our colleagues from Marga, he said that the kind of work that's happening on biochar and bioresources, especially in the context of the larger reality of biomass burning and climate change, is on the potential of the network to initiate something called the Black Revolution. And very akin to the Green Revolution, but then only on the nomenclature bit. this might actually, the Black Revolution might actually also help repair a lot of damages brought about by the Green Revolution. So the website talks about the problem itself and on why IBBN is required. There is this bit about interested individuals and organizations having an opportunity to be part of this process. There could be students who would want to volunteer, researchers, as well as those who are interested to co-draft policy papers, based on IBBN's own experience or the members' own experience. And so this convergence is what Join IBBN is all about. And it also talks about our intervention. So it kind of flips sideways. And so it is the practice and, the livelihood of farmers is something that we are really committed to. So climate change, yes. Biomass burning, yes. Those issues have to be addressed. But they are never a trade-off with the livelihood of farmers. So the practice is about, strengthening the practice of, working with the practitioners. Then we have the research component. And there is a need, and as well as the initial findings are pretty contradictory in nature on the various aspects of biochar and bioresources. And so there is a need for a platform which can get researchers to talk together. So it's really not just about in-depth research on the topic, but about learning from each other. So that academic work is something which IBBN is strongly committed to. Training, of course, and in the training, very clearly we say it should be a non-hierarchical platform. It's really not experts talking down, to practitioners as well as to others, but it's a non-hierarchical partners of, of people sharing their experiences with the objective of moving forward. And we would say that it's a dialectical approach of learning, of peer-to-peer learning. And it's going to be a non-hierarchical platform as such. Network building, of course, from the very local panchayat level, where such practices have to happen in collaboration with panchayats, which has already started in places in Odisha, in Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, and Telangana. That you have people working locally at the panchayat level, but also working with local elected representatives as well as democratic institutions, and putting to good use the constitutional framework of the 73rd Amendment. So it should be, the networking is from the local level to the state level. Of course, there needs to be, we might even have state chapters going forward. Nationally, this is definitely a national network, and we are already in touch with a lot of organizations at the national level. And we have also gained a foothold, in the global biochar and bioresources landscape, and working together with the networks elsewhere. And of course, advocacy. Advocacy may be a medium-term goal, and we are in the process of drafting a white paper based on our current experiences, especially of Dr. Vishwas and Dr. Keel. We are drafting a white paper. But then advocacy itself is in the medium term, and advocacy is definitely required because agriculture is a kind of sector which really cannot be remunerative unless there is a very systematic involvement of the state, and this is true of any other country in the world. And the Biochar and Bioresources Network will look at innovative ways, innovative policies of ensuring, that public support goes directly to the practitioners, as well as systems are built to create knowledge systems around biochar and bioresources. So this would be about the website itself, and as you can see, it's an outcome of revitalizing rain-fed agriculture networks, Snehakunja and GIZ working together for quite some time now. So these are some of the achievements in the past few months, and the website. This is the first time that the website has also been made public. So I take this opportunity to now welcome Dr. Bishwas. We will be today discussing two aspects. One is, the soil health impact of biochar. And then as soon as Dr. Bishwas finishes his presentation, we'll have Dr. I think Bindu, who's part of the schedule as I see it now, or Priyadarshini, who will lead a discussion. So the presentation itself is going to be for a maximum of about 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. And then we'll have about 20 minutes of discussions led by Dr. Bindu and Dr. Priyadarshini. And the second presentation is going to be by Dr. Akila Vikraf. And they are also partners of GIZ, working very specifically on this issue. And so he will talk about the policy implications of biochar, as well as especially given the yield improvement or yield impact of biochar. And so these are experts in the topic. So I now welcome Dr. Bishwas. Welcome all of you. Like I said, Dr. Bishwas is going to speak first. Then we are going to have a discussion. Dr. Akil will go next, and then we will have a discussion again before the closure. And Dr. Jitendra from GIZ will then talk about their own efforts so far. They've been having a very comprehensive project called Pro Soil. They're working at the national level. So Dr. Jitendra will talk about GIZ's involvement at the very last of this program. So Dr. Bishwas, the floor is yours, and you've been allowed to share your presentation. Please go ahead. You've got about 15 minutes to start with.
Thank you, Dr. Kshitij, and namaskar to all the participants.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning to all.
Good morning.
Good morning. I could find a few people, like I could find Indranil Ghosh, I could find Akilji, I could find Archana ji and others. Sabko mere taraf se namaskar. After Aurangabad, I could find your faces.
Yes.
So nice meeting you. And I also take this opportunity to thank you, the organizers, to invite me for this. And when I was given this particular job of presenting the interaction of biochar with soil, keeping in mind the effect of biochar application on soil health, I was thinking what to present in this particular forum. So I was trying to see the literature, worldwide literature, and I was also trying to see some of the meta-analysis which have gone through. And then I found that actually, if although we are at a very formative and nascent stage on our own, but the work on biochar has been going on quite distinctively for the last 20 years. Started earlier than that, but it has got the steam for the last 22 years. I could find from 2000 onwards, a lot of research has gone into biochar aspects. And to understand how biochar affects soils. And being a soil scientist and being a person, I'm a student of soil science, I'm also trying to learn what kind of things are happening when biochar, which is the black carbon, is interacting with the soil at different rates. What is really the response of soil to application of biochar? From that standpoint, I am trying to make a presentation here. So let me see how to share it. problem always. I think I am audible, isn't it?
Yes,
But
yes,
I am
very
not
much,
able to
very much.
share this. But I am not able to share the screen. When I am making it, it is
Sir, if you want to put the, is it possible to give it to the admin? If it is on, is there a link? Then they can share it.
okay. No, the presentation is in front of me, but how to make it, how to share it, it is not coming.
There is a button, green button in middle of the screen in the
Yes,
bottom.
yeah, that I have found and I have put share. Then it is asking whether you want to share the whole screen.
Yes,
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 whole
please.
screen here, and then put the share. Then you go to.
I have gone for enter screen and then I am putting share, but it is not responding. And now it is coming, it seems.
Now it, yeah, yes.
No, no, it's someone else.
It is someone else.
Yeah, I tried it, sir. It is happening. Just try it again. Sir.
Okay.
Go to share screen. Then.
Okay. Then
click on the one box that you would like to present. Then at the bottom, right side bottom, there is a share.
Okay, it is there, but when I am putting enter screen, it is not coming.
Sir, don't put entire screen. You have to open your presentation. Then it comes up as a box. Then you have to
Select the presentation.
Click on the. Sir, is your presentation open on your laptop?
Yes, yes. Not laptop. It is in the desktop only.
It is in the desktop. You should be able to see the presentation as a box when you go share screen, the green button.
Or do you want to, would you want to mail the presentation to me, Dr. Bishwas, and then I can present it on your behalf? Dr. Bishwas, are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
So if you can't, just try once more. And if you can't, then you can always send it to me and I'll project it to you. Or do you want to just go ahead and present without having to project it?
Some of the slides are interesting. I could have shown that.
Yeah, I imagine.
I wanted to show that I made it. But in our case, it does not happen. I used to do it very frequently.
We can't even see you now.
Kshitij, actually, actually, he can just give you the file on the chat box. There is that little document next to the emoticon. There is a little, you can even share a file in the chat box without going into email.
That's right.
So that would be the best.
Dr. Bishwas, you can even share it to me on the chat box. should we go ahead with Dr. Akhil's presentation while you fix this technology bit? You're muted. Dr. Bishwas, you're muted.
I suppose he's having some issues with the Zoom. He had to rejoin again the device. I think it would be better if we can move on with Dr. Akhil.
That's right, Jacob. Yes. Yeah.
Can you call him just to check with him, and then we can proceed as per the plan?
So friends, we are sorry for this. Dr. Bishwas will join after Dr. Akhil has made his presentation. He's posting his presentation to me, so let's make it easier. Without wasting time, I request Dr. Akhil. Dr. Akhil, you will be talking on the yield impact of biochar, which would, of course, also lead us towards a policy brief going forward. The floor is yours, Dr. Akhil.
I hope my screen is visible.
Yeah, very much, yes.
Thank God. I'm not stuck into that technology glitch. Anyway, welcome back to our presentation. Friends, as you all know about all the activity what we are doing with this IBBM network, and Jitij has briefed us all about the policy and other activities what we are doing with GIZ. Today, I've been given the topic to speak on the biochar with respect to crop yield and how it is helping in soil and agriculture for crop yield. So, hope I'm audible to all of you.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yes. So I'll be speaking on biochar in agriculture, effect on soil, key factors, effect on crops, and major potential. This is outline of the presentation. So what is biochar? We all know, but just to give a snap of biochar, that it is a carbon-rich material produced from biomass through the thermochemical process under limited oxygen or no oxygen. It has many benefits, enhances availability of nutrients and water, leading to reduced fertilizer and irrigation needs, improves microbe habitat, improves soil organic carbon, enhances water and nutrient holding capacity of the soil, improves soil fertility, crop yield, and sustainability of the landscape. So I'll be trying to touch on the third topic of the soil fertility, crop yield. So let me tell you about that, how the advantages of the biochar offers the farming system or the crops. So it basically enhances the soil fertility, ultimately the crop yield, increase fertilizer use efficiency, improve water retentions through high surface area and pores available into the biochar, higher cation exchange capacity, and I think Dr. Bishwas will be speaking on this. It helps in less nutrient runoff, clean, efficient biomass energy production from the crop residue and forest debris. What we are talking about, this, the parali burning and all those, which is a problem nowadays. Combined heat, power, and refrigeration opportunities from pyrolysis leads to net sequestration of carbon from the atmosphere to the soil, and from profitability is higher. And can be financed through carbon markets and carbon offsets. decrease. It is well known that it is decreasing the nitrous oxide and methane emission from the soils through powerful tool for reversing diversification. Provide alternative for slash and burn agriculture, can work on compost and afforestation. It helps in producing electricity, biogas, and hydrogen fuels. It can be used variety of feedstocks, including crop residues such as wheat, crop burning to produce biochar for helping the crop yield. It also acts as a liming agent to reduce acidity of soils and net production of energy in form of bioenergy. It is the brief of the biochar, what it does and how it helps in overall scenario. The potential effects of biochar on soil fertility and agriculture, you can see that this is widely accepted. But how and what are the key points which we need to look after? That it helps in growth rate of crop increased, quality of water improved, reduction in nutrient leaching, reduction in acidity of soil, more water retention, decrease in fertilizer use. So how it's helping in the more water retention and decrease in fertilizer use is because it is having a high number of pores within itself, and though it is restoring this all water and fertilizer into it as a reservoir, which is ultimately supplying to the plant when it is need, and the crop is benefiting of this available water as well as the nutrition. It also improves the soil properties such as availability of nutrient, as I mentioned, that cation exchange, water holding. This is all actually mentioned. This I have taken from some literature. This is themes of more of literature kind. I try to make it as a readable as well as understandable for the audience. It has the magnitude of the crop yield improvement varied with the soil and biochar types, because we know that different feedstocks can produce different kind of biochar, and that is ultimately how we are supplying to the field, what is the method of application. This also affects the crop yield and the kind of practices. Beside all this crop productivity, carbon sequestration reduce, as I mentioned there in previous slide. This has also benefit of this. The application of biochar with compost improves the biophysical and chemical properties of the soil as well as the nutrient supply to plants, because whatever we supply in terms of organic fertilizer or inorganic fertilizer, that may be stored into the pores available into the biochar, that ultimately supply to the plants, which is when it is needed, and then ultimately which is helping the crop production increase in long term. It can also be used to reclaim marginal and depleted soil, making more agricultural land available while increasing the crop yield, so that the need for expansion of agricultural land or decreases, because it helps in increasing the crop yield within the same patch of the land. Biochar also amends the soil significantly, increase the plant growth and nutrition, and improves the efficiency of nitrogen fertilizers. It also helps in the application of less than 5 tons per hectare can increase crop yield by over 50% in certain types of soil. It is mostly in depleted kind of soil, which helps in building the soil. Biochar amendments are in some situations able to increase yield substantially, sometimes more than 100% or equal to 100% compared to fully fertilized control. Even highly productive agricultural lands contains patches of degraded soils that will also reclaim when the application of biochar is done. So what are the key factors for biochar impact? It is very difficult to compare the biochar of different origins, production method, different soil types, and different climatic conditions. The large inconsistency of biochar and soil needs organized studies across soil to identify important variations between different biochar, soil type, and quantity applied. So some of the key factors that influence the impact of biochar on soil health and agricultural productivity are the soil pH. So most of the biochar have a neutral to basic pH. That is how in acidic soil it aids significant higher gain in plant productivity. That is how, it has potential to reduce the need for conventional liming operations, cutting back the costs associated with the practices. And addition of basic biochar in basic soil may decrease the crop yield. So we need to learn that what kind of biochar we are trying to add, and the soil type is, I mean, what kind of soil type is there. So this is the key factor which we need to understand, that what we are trying to apply into the soil. So the second is nutrient availability. Biochar not considered as a fertilizer per se, but rather a soil conditioner that affects the retention and mobilization of existing nutrients for plant uptake. A biochar can help improve soil functions by reducing nutrient loss below the root zone, increasing the bioavailability of nutrients to plants over time, and decreasing nutrient leaching, likely due to the porosity and internal surface area of the biochar particles. The impact of biochar and nutrients present in the soil and the viability to the plant is very important. So biochar ability to improve nutrient availability has the potential to reduce reliance on fertilizer and its associated environmental consequences. Similarly, the application of fertilizing agents jointly with biochar has been observed to the increase the positive response to the biochar. Next is the soil moisture. Biochar can improve water infiltration and retention in soil through a combination of direct and indirect mechanisms. The direct effect of biochar induced water retention is related to its porous structure and large surface area. So the plant available water is better retained in soil with intermediate pores, which is something about 0.2 to 20 micrometers. So biochar itself holds greater amounts of plant available water, and the changes to soil water availability due to biochar application also improves overall water holding capacity. And the soil organic matter. Biochar cannot replace the portion of organic matter that supplies the soil. Biochar with energy, and the impact of biochar application on the pre-existing soil organic matter is thus fundamental. In tropical regions where climate conditions generally result in faster cycling of soil organic matter, the depth of organic carbon accrual found in terra preta sites have been raised some expectation on the indirect role that biochar could play in generating and sustaining high level of soil organic matter. Indeed, the plant litter input to terra preta soil was stabilizing to a greater extent that litter added to adjacent soil with low biochar content. It is also important to know about the amount of biochar applied. The plant response to biochar also varies with the amount of biochar applied. A positive correlation between increased levels of biochar addition and plant response may only continue up to certain points. So at a higher application rate, the effect on yield may decrease and may in some cases become negative. So this is very important to know the amount of biochar applied. The specific biophysical optimum for each soil crop system remains to be determined. It may vary from few tons per hectare for certain situations to much larger quantities in other circumstances. So this is the key factors for the biochar impact. So I have gathered some information on the benefit of the yield. So from the meta studies for the increased crop yield. So increased crop yield is a commonly reported benefits of adding biochar to soil. However, experimental results are variable and dependent on experimental setup, soil properties and conditions, while causative mechanisms are yet to be fully elucidated. Application rate and frequency depends on many factors, including the type of biomass used. Several studies in the published literature on biochar for use as a soil amendment has reported positive effects of biochar application on crop yields at rates of 5 to 50 tons of biochar per hectare. With appropriate nutrient management, the impact of biochar application is seen most in highly degraded, acidic or nutrient depleted soil. It has been observed from the various studies conducted on many crops that the crop-wise dose is not standardized yet, and it depends on soil type, a very specific feedstock and crop yield altogether. So we need to learn that which crop are we going to target, which soil type, what is the type of biochar we are targeting. So altogether, this will help in getting the benefit from the biochar. You can see the in case of rice, we have a various doses of biochar, tons of 30, 88, 11, 5, and we have got the different responses. In first case, you can see that 30 tons per hectare of biochar with made from logs of eucalyptus got almost 300% grain yield increase. So it is sole effect of biochar reported by Inaugural et al. While in some cases it has been added with the NPK and earthworms, so they have got benefit of up to 80%, 73%, or so far. This is not very specific to any crop type. That means we need to learn that which kind of soil we are targeting, what is the pH type, what is the kind of the texture of soil. So we need to see all kind of things for before application of the biochar. In case of maize, you see that this range from 4 tons to 100 tons per hectare with mix with NPK. We can find that it has shown the result up to 150% from of a basal dose. So these are the some of the studies which has been done throughout the world, are reported in different studies in different soil types, different doses, different feedstock types has been reported, and likewise we have seen the different increase in the yield in the crop. So it is not crop specific, it is soil specific, it is the kind of feedstock specific, pH specific. We need to see all kind of things before application into the particular crop type. Similarly, in cotton and wheat, you see that mixing with the NPK, 20 tons of dose, it has given us the almost 20% of the yield than the base yield. So similarly in wheat, 10 and 5% of 5 tons per hectare of biochar given in ferrosol and sandy loam increased at 250% and respectively reported by Zeaton and Gupta et al. Likewise, in pigeon pea, mung beans, and soybean, we have seen then a combination of biochar with NPK has given us increase in yield over the without biochar control condition, reported by Venkatesh and Ishwaran in India and Kishambu from Japan. And so there are various studies has been reported throughout the world. So what are the 5 major potential benefits of biochar which we need to learn? That that it improves the soil quality, that will ultimately help in the crop production and yield benefit, but especially in degraded land. Increase food production and food security through this the system of application into the different soil types. It reduces the atmospheric carbon dioxide and increase the soil carbon sequestration. Production of renewable energy from pyrolysis process, which helps in building the energy in different forms, and the redirection of biomass waste to kind of a product which helps in production in the different kind of activity which we use in crop yield and many kind of uses we can see that. With this, I'd like to conclude here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Akil. You just sounded a little hurried. I know that we have a very short time. There were so many things for you to share, and it was so very soon. So now I request Dr. Priyadarshini Karve to take over. Dr. Priyadarshini Karve is from Samachit Tipo Technologies, and she has been working on biochar both from the social component as well as from its business potential. And so she works out of Pune, and she's one of the advisors of IBBM. So Dr. Priyadarshini.
Thank you, Kshitij, and thank you, Dr. Akil, for really, I mean, as Kshitij said, there was a lot of information, but you presented it very nicely and made it very accessible to everyone. A few points that came to my mind. I'm speaking here from a physicist perspective. I'm not an agricultural scientist. I'm a physicist, but I've been I worked on biochar initially from the energy perspective, and then got interested in the agricultural applications and particularly the carbon sequestration aspect of it. One thing from a physics perspective, I would like to highlight here that when we are adding biochar into the soil, this is basically inert elemental carbon, which is not really going to interact with anything. And that is exactly why we say that biochar in itself is not a fertilizer. The increase in organic carbon happens because of the increase in soil bacteria, which find more space in the soil because of porosity of biochar. So the carbon from biochar in itself is not really the organic carbon increase. I think that is something we have to keep in mind. And this becomes an important factor when it comes to accounting for carbon in carbon sequestration. As you rightly pointed out, and I think this is there are two big issues that are emerging, according to me, from what you said. One is that there is a lot of variation. There is variation in soil types, there is variation in biochar feedstocks, there is variation in how biochar is produced. So too many variables are there. In addition to that, there is variability of agricultural systems itself. I mean, even the same soil, same crop, year to year, there will be other variations which will reflect in the yield. So I think what is needed is really to plan multi-locational, multi-year systematic trials on an all India level to come up with some standardizations as to dosages for specific soil types in different geographical areas, etc. Right now, what is happening is people are working in their own areas in a not very organized manner. So a lot of data is emerging from different papers, but a clear picture is not emerging from that. So perhaps that is something which the network can look at, considering that it has members spread across the country. Can we plan a really ambitious long-term research on this? So that is one thing which sort of struck me as I was listening to you. Another factor which I would like to highlight here is that we are seeing a lot of black colored ash basically coming into the market under the name of biochar, which has hardly any carbon content, and this is mainly industrial origin, where some kind of biomass fuel is being used for industrial purposes, and whatever is left behind, as long as it is black colored, people start calling it biochar. We got a few samples of that and we found that it is of no use because there is hardly any carbon content in it. So I think that is something that we need to figure out, that what is the definition of biochar? What is the minimum carbon content that the material must have in order to justify calling it biochar? That I think is one question that has remained unanswered so far. So that is another area where perhaps as a network we need to reach some consensus as to how do you characterize a material and call it biochar, because that will also have implications to its agricultural impacts. The last point I would like to make is that when we say that biochar production systems are also leading to energy production, I would like to sound a word of caution here, because since I have worked on this from an energy perspective, if we design a gasifier to give maximum energy output, then the material that is left behind has very little char content, carbon content. So if you are trying to extract energy, then your biochar quality is going to be inferior. If you want to extract biochar, then you will have to compromise on how much energy you can extract from the system. So this is also an area where perhaps we need to be a bit careful about our messaging. That is what I feel. So these are some of the comments that, some of the thoughts that came to my mind. But thank you very much for a very comprehensive presentation. Over to you, Kshitij.
Thank you, Dr. Priyadarshini. Yes, yes, please.
Yeah, I'd like to give answer to
yes,
few
please,
questions. Thank you very much, Priyadarshini, and I'm really happy that you raised a few points over here. So I like to highlight those 2-3 points, like biochar characterization. As you mentioned, that there are a lot of things in the market which they are sold in the name of biochar. But now we have this characterization done by ISS, and this is published. And what kind of content of biochar should have carbon content in biochar. So they are grading into that 60%, 50%, 30% of carbon content should be there at least. Accordingly, we can mention that A, B, C, D into the biochar type. So that is already there by ISS, and that's published, and we can take from that. So kind of a standard is there available in the market, but how many of them are following that this we need to learn and find out. And the second point, the carbon sequestration, as you mentioned correctly, that we cannot say directly that whatever we are putting in the name of biochar is directly a carbon which will be really available to the plants, but this will really help to build the soil quality, which will ultimately support to the soil and support to the crop system, agriculture system for the crop. So these 2-3 points which you raise, and you rightly mentioned, while producing the biochar, when we need to look at what is our target product is. If the target product is something else and the biochar is leftover product, then definitely the carbon content in that product will be vary from 0 to something. Whatever we what is. So we need to see that what is our target in terms of biochar. If it is core biochar we are targeting, then definitely it will be somewhere 60% carbon could be really approachable and easily we can get that. But if it is something else like energy, or it is some other product, by oil or syngas is there, then definitely the carbon content will be lower into that, maybe 30% or maybe 20%. Sometimes we got one vendor who is supplying this biochar in the name of biochar, that powder was supplying. So he said that we'll give you very cheap. So I thought, no, let me check that first and then we'll go for that. So we took the samples, random sample from their stock, and 4-5 samples, and sent it to ISS Bhopal. And there they found that this has only 10%, 12% of the carbon. So you rightly mentioned that in the name of biochar they are selling something. There's some black powder is there they are selling. So we said that no, this is not a biochar. This is something, but it's not a biochar. Maybe ash or something black. So similarly, we need to look into that what we are trying to add into the agriculture or into the soil it should be a biochar, real biochar, which is having more than at least more than 30% of carbon content at least, which is a type C kind of biochar. So these few points I like to just give you answer first. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Priyadarshini, I'm sure you've got access to the chat box, and so there are questions that you might want to coordinate.
Let me just quickly look at that.
Sabya's was the first. I think Dr. Bindu's was the first one on carbon sequestration.
Can I ask a question?
Prabhakar, you might have to just wait. There are 2-3 questions quickly. We might have to go through. Dr. Priyadarshini, can you coordinate that?
Yeah. So one question is is my understanding is that biochar actually sequester atmospheric carbon. Is that correct? This is from Bindu. Yes, basically you are harvesting carbon from the natural carbon cycle in this case. That is what is happening, because when you convert, if you take any biomass and you either burn it totally or compost it, all the carbon is going up in the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. But when you biochar it, about 20 to 30% is held back as elemental unreactive carbon, and when you put it in soil it is going to remain there as elemental carbon for thousands of years. So about 30% carbon is prevented from going into the atmosphere. So that is the physics chemistry that is happening there. The additional impact of biochar in the soil, which leads to increased biomass growth is a bonus in that sense.
Dr. Bishwas, yes?
In fact, I was trying to tell, if you ask these questions after my presentation and if you take up all the questions after my presentation, that will be better.
Okay, okay. We could do that. What
because
do you think,
certain
Dr.
things which I was supposed to tell, the questions are coming that.
Okay.
So that will be somewhat clear when I will make my presentation.
Okay, we'll leave it to Dr. Priyadarshini. She's chairing this. What do you think, Dr. Priyadarshini? Should we wait for?
Yeah, that's also fine.
Yeah.
But there are some specific questions, so let me just answer that.
Okay.
One question directed to me is: are there small-scale units that could produce biochar plus energy at farm level? So, in urban context, what would be the cost of such units? So, we do have small-scale units. Both, as I was saying, both biochar and energy, it would be a bit ambitious. You will have to compromise on one of the two. So as Dr. Akil rightly pointed out, you have to decide what is your objective and put in a system accordingly. But yes, there are portable mobile small scale systems in urban context. In fact, we have been working more in urban context recently, where garden waste management has become a big issue for urban municipal corporations. So there are units that we have designed for that. So you can connect with me offline and I can share more information.
Okay. Another question, Dr. Priyadarshini, I think on behalf of you, I wanted to ask Dr. Akhil, because he has been in ICR earlier. Sabya from RRAN is asking if there's any All India coordinated research project of ICR on this.
No, as far as my knowledge is concerned, till now I didn't find any ECRIP on this biochar network. So Dr. Bishwas may give further input to this because they are from that leading institute. But for my understanding, there is no ECRIP onto this biochar network.
Okay, okay. Thank you. We would actually wait for Dr. Priyadarshini because I think Dr. Bishwas will also do his presentation. And we have Dr. Bindu and Dr. Priyadarshini will be coordinating the discussions after Dr. Bishwas has done his presentation. Dr. Bishwas, the floor is yours. I hope you've been able to figure out the technology bit. Yeah?
Kshitij,
Yes.
Before, actually, my presentation was the second presentation, follow-up of that Dr. Bishwas's presentation. That's why I left all of the soil kind of things into that presentation. So I was expecting he will speak, then I will speak, then it has just reversed the sequence.
That's right. We'll wait for that.
Yeah,
Dr. Bishwas, the floor is yours, please.
I have sent the file to you. Have you got that?
I haven't got it till about a minute ago. Let me check again.
As we're waiting, there is a comment that I would like to make to all of us here, and which is this. I believe that what IBBM needs to do is set up a research wing and a social application wing. My understanding is that we need to actually have more fine-tuned research around it in order to advise the farmers a bit. So I'll bring this point up again because I believe we're ready to share the screen. Okay.
Yeah, Dr. Bishwas, I've not received any mail from you. I wonder what happened.
Dr. Bishwas, we can see your screen. Can you just minimize the Zoom window and thereafter go to the presentation? We can see your screen. Please minimize the.
Yeah, please minimize the Zoom window.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's just a blank screen now. If your presentation is open, then we should be able to see that.
It has come?
No, sir, it hasn't. I haven't received any mail from you either. So Dr. Bishwas, if you can go ahead with your presentation, because I think there are also a lot of other questions that you might want to answer, along with Dr. Priyadarshini and Dr. Akhil and Bindu. I mean, Dr. Bindu also had her own questions here, but then can you start making your presentation without probably using the slide?
Okay. As I was telling before, I don't know, I have sent you the mail and how it has not gone. I just sent you the mail.
Okay, now I've got it. Let me just download this, please.
Okay. Hello.
Yes, Dr. Bishwas, you can go ahead.
So you put it in the presentation modes. Good. So I have been thinking what to present. So I have tried to be honest to myself, I have tried to synthesize the studies around the world for the last 20 years, and I have gone through some of the meta-analysis which have discussed about, say, more than 50, about 100 studies together, and they have come out with certain kind of facts. Whatever knowledge we have gathered so far during the last 20 years in working with interaction between biochar and soil, that I have tried to bring about in this particular. Next slide. So I would be basically talking about changes in physical, chemical and biological properties of soil by biochar application. In fact, how soil responds to biochar application, that is the most important point I would like to say. Next. Now, question is, why do we think of biochar and why biochar has come into place? Dr. Akhil has said that because of the invention of terra preta in the Amazon forest, you know, Amazon forest, which is a red soil because of heavy rainfall, that it is a kaolinite containing and sesquioxide containing soil, which is a red soil, which are generally impoverished soil because most of the bases are leached out and that kind of soil. But they have found certain pockets where they have found that the soil is very rich and rich in carbon. And by invention, they could find that there was a practice by the Red Indians which used to use terra preta. So from that kind of concept, the application of biochar has come into being because as a you can say carbon positive material, and biochar has been thought about putting carbon from the atmosphere into the soil because historically, because of that conversion of forest into land, we have lost a lot of carbon. And before we can go from fossil fuel to some other technologies in the intermittent period, can we get back the soil to the original level of carbon? From that standpoint, biochar may come to some kind of a rescue. That's why biochar has been thought of in that way. Now, when biochar is put into the soil, what kind of reaction soil can give and what kind of response soil can give, that is the most important thing. And you know that in our country and most of the other issues also, that agriculture is, soil is related to agriculture mostly, although soil is part of the bigger ecosystems. But still, when from the agricultural point of view, when we talk about soil, we talk about the sustainable developmental goals and what are the factors, what are the different um, goals which actually talk about soil. Like in the very first sustainable development goal is removing hunger. That has not been mentioned here, but I have the improve soil quality, then chemicals and waste reduce the release to air, soil, water, restore degraded land and soil, reduce deaths and illnesses from air. So all these things, sustainable development goals touch upon the soil. Now that's why soil has become such an important. Now question is whether biochar can come to the rescue of the soil, whether biochar can provide the services which you are expecting and provide all the sustainable development goals. That is what we wanted to say. That's why you go back to the slide, go back to the earlier slides. Now, earlier slides. So you see that soil has different functions. The most important function is soil is a source of the food, where food begins. Otherwise, it's a habitat of the microorganisms, the biodiversity, the entire biodiversity is actually coming from the soil. And also soil is a filtering, buffering, and all these actions. And so all these functions of the soil are to be restored. And because of certain practices, the soil, we are actually not only losing soil. When I woke up today and I opened the newspaper Times of India, I found that Sadhguru's big advertisement, Save Soil. And he has crossed so many nations, 73 nations, and there is a slogan, Save Soil. And there is a full 2 pages newspaper advertisement today. I found the front page and the back page. It is about Save Soil. And now my question is whether the biochar which we are talking about today, whether that can come to the rescue of the soil. Whatever we are talking about, increasing the organic content of the soil, the soil as a mitigating the climate change through carbon sequestration, and then improving the soil health, all those things can, and reducing the contamination, all those things can biochar play a part. So that is the question. That's why let us see what biochar do when biochar is applied to the soil. Now I am not going detail into that. You know that there are different methods of pyrolysis, and when we talk about biochar, we should not forget that we are actually talking about slow pyrolysis. We are not talking about, sometimes we talk about torrefaction and others, but basically when we are talking about biochar, we are talking about slow pyrolysis. We are not talking about fast pyrolysis, flash pyrolysis, gasification, because those are for energy. Those are either for gases or for energy, and we are not talking from that point. So we are talking for a temperature range between 350 to more maybe 550. 800 is such a little bit higher temperature. So go to the next one. I'm going very fast. And now see what actually biochar consists of. Biochar consists of basically this. This is a you can say benzene ring, aromatic ring based on carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and also there are other elements like nitrogen, and and also there are all those cationic elements. Cationic elements there, and also some trace elements. Other than that, it has got certain surface functional groups. Carbonyl, mostly carbonyl and phenolic group, but other than that is ester group and carboxyl group also. So phenolic group, carboxylic group, carbonyl group, and ester group. Madam asked a question, Dr. Priyadarshini asked a question, and I was about to answer that question, that whether carbon from the biochar should be considered a as a soil carbon. I am going into, I think through my presentation that will be answered. Next. So next slide, please. Okay, so when we talk about pyrolysis, we should make our, because pyrolysis, the conditions of either feedstock and pyrolysis conditions, like the highest temperature setting, and also the residence times of the temperature and rate of heating, all those factors affect the characteristics of the biochar. A little bit of understanding we can make from this, how biochar with the temperature, increasing temperature, how the properties changes. You see surface area changes, then pH is also become higher and higher, CEC increases, carbon recovery decreases. So we have to make a balance between the carbon recovery and the increase in the properties which are actually beneficial for soil application, like CEC, surface area, all those are very important. That's why we say we should go for an optimum temperature condition, which is the highest temperature that should be maintained between 400 to 500, or not beyond 550. So that is the important optimum temperature through which pyrolysis the biochar should be produced. Next, please. And you can see over here that how biochar, and Dr. Akhil also made a point. I would agree to that, that you cannot actually compare biochar made from one feedstock to another. You can see over here how temperature, these are temperature 300, 400, 500, these are research, that from different type of feedstock, what kind of values you are getting in terms of total organic carbon, actually the carbon which is actually coming into the through torrefaction or through pyrolysis are basically aromatic carbon. So why we cannot say this is not organic carbon? These are organic carbon but recalcitrant carbon. These are definitely organic carbon because these are aromatic carbon, and most of the aliphatic carbon is through the thermal conversion is becoming in the aromatic. That's why it is becoming recalcitrant. So you can see CO TOC ratio, TOC content, CN ratio, CH ratio, carbon by oxygen ratio, ash percentage, dissolved organic carbon, CCPH, how it is changing. With temperature, this is definitely increasing. But if you want to see the characteristics of biochar, there is a classification of biochar. There is an international protocol. We have also, from Indian point of view, we have also used some of the international protocol, and we have made a protocol from Indian Institute of Soil Science. That book is available with us, and we have actually circulated to different institutions. There are different types of biochar, and there is a quality control of biochar through certain analysis. So if now we understand that feedstock makes a lot of difference. If we talk of wood biochar, then you are going to get a very recalcitrant material. You are not going to get any kind of nutrient content in those biochar. But if we go for, say, cattle dung or any FYM or any compost made into biochar, then you will get certain nutrient content. If you are making from the crop residues, you are going certain kind of certain kind of biochar. So if you are going to apply from the nutrient point of view, those kind of biochars are applied. But there is a school of thought, those which are actually decomposable organic matter, they should not be made biochar, because we are going to lose a lot of nutrients if we actually because when organic matter gets decomposed, we get a lot of you can say development of the it's a food for the microorganisms, and also a lot of nutrients coming out of those. So we do not subscribe to the idea of making biochar from the decomposable residues or decomposable organic matters. So that's why biochar has to be made from those. That is also one of the policy decisions, and a policy paper has been made from this institute. That point has been made. Now, as the question was asked, whether biochar becomes a part of the soil. Initially, if you look at the things that there is a porous structure, and the porosity of the biochar remains very low when it is first applied to the soil. But there's soil is a huge reservoir of all sorts of reactions taking place, whether it is ion exchange, whether it is dissolution, co-precipitation, then ion exchange, all sorts of reactions are going on, and those reactions are catalyzed by the biochar, because biochar has got a high surface area, lot of pores, where a lot of microsites are developed, and there is a kind of a graphite structure within biochar that is also leading to the catalytic functions of that particular things. And so many reactions are taking place in the initial 1 to 3 4 weeks. So there is a strong reaction taking place when biochar is first applied in the first 3 4 weeks, and then there is a up to say 8th week, there is a gradual reaction. Those reactions get down. You can see from this how biochar decomposition takes place when it is applied to the soil. This is hard research data. You can oversee that where this is from 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. We have put it in days. And what is the biochar percent data? How much percentage of biochar is actually decomposed? Very few percentage, only 4%. But you see, initial 1 2 years, so maximum reactions are taking place within few days. And very in certain cases, if you go for the crop, grass, manure, you see how they are behaving differently. In case of crop and where there is a nutrient content, the reactions taking place in the very first few days. And the rate of decomposition, if you percentage of total added per day, you can see how it is declining exponentially so fast. Within a few years, it becomes totally recalcitrant. But a lot of reactions are taking place, and when that biochar is aging with time, then there is a lot of organo-mineral interaction. It becomes a part of the soil. Then we call it is a part of the soil carbon. But initially, when it is applying it, when it is not becoming a part of the soil matrix, we do not say that biochar is becoming a soil carbon. Biochar remaining black carbon. Even from the time immemorial, prehistorical time, there is a happening of all this forest fire, and still today there is a black carbon content of most of the soils. It is found most of the areas where there were forests. So that kind of carbon we are not talking about. We are talking about organic carbon, soil carbon, which is a part of the soil matrix, and biochar carbon with part of the time becomes a, because it reacts with all the mineral content of the soil and becomes an organo mineral complex. It becomes a part of the soil matrix. So biochar, what are the factors? Internal factors: feedstock, pyrolysis temperature, what kind of pyrolysis, what is the heating rate, what is the maximum temperature attained, what is the residence time of maximum temperature. All those things actually gives rise to the quality of the biochar and its mean residence time, how many years it will remain. If you look at the meta-analysis of the study, you will find wood biochar remains most of the highest period of time, and it all depends on the pyrolysis temperature. If the temperature is higher, higher is the MRT, mean residence time in the soils. Now you can see that how biochar behaves differently from organic matter. Organic matter, whatever you say, it is always there is a quasi-equilibrium and steady state condition. In a particular primary productivity, at a particular level of production of crop, at a particular level of organic matter addition, it always attains a steady state. Beyond this, it goes up the carbon content of the soil. But if biochar is applied, biochar can go beyond this steady state, because biochar it brings a carbon from the atmosphere, because the at least 30 to 40, even to 50% of carbon is actually stored in the biochar. That biochar remains in the soil forever, and with time it becomes a part of the soil organomineral complex. Now you see here, If we add litter, manure, compost, this kind of curve you can get. Initially you can increase, then it will again decrease. This kind of sequence you will get. But in case of biochar, if you in every 3 years you make a biochar application, it will continue to go adding carbon to the soil, and there is really no steady state condition over here, because it is not a decomposable material. If only a few percentage, 5 to 10% will be decomposed over time, and rest will remain in the soil. But because of the interactions with the organisms, minerals, and huge reservoir of reactions taking place within the soil, biochemical, biophysical, all sorts of reaction, it becomes a part of the soil matrix with time. So it becomes a part of the soil carbon. Next, please. So how this it affects the soil health? When we talk about soil health or soil quality, we define soil health or soil quality as a capacity of a soil to function with the ecosystem boundary. Now, the capacity of the soil to function, what function? Function as a medium for plant growth, so function as a habitat for the microorganism, function as a filtering, buffering capacity, and as a purifier of purifier for the water, purifier for the all the environmentally pollutant materials added to soils. So those kind of functions soil has to play. And if the capacity of the soil, the function of the to perform those functions remain intact, we say the soil quality and soil health is okay. But if those functions are not being able, so these are the some of the functions I have mentioned over here: biodiversity, productivity, soil water solid flow, filtering, buffering, nutrient cycling, structural support. So soil has to perform all these functions. Now question is how biochar application is going to affect. Now functions cannot be directly determined. Functions are determined through indicators. Like what are the indicators which are actually indicating these functions? These are mentioned over here. Soil water, tillage, aggregate stability, porosity, biodensity, structure, what is the earthworm population. Then in case of filtering, buffering, what is the SOC content, texture, CEC, what is the herbicide residue, what is the buffering capacity of these soils. So these are some of the parameters which generally we determine, and through these parameters they are classified under physical, chemical, and biological, and a combination of those parameters makes the soil health. That's why generally when we discuss about soil health, soil organic carbon is the center of the, and it's the most important key arbitrator or indicator of soil health, because soil organic carbon in actually playing the roles in all the factors, whether it is physical, chemical. In the recycling process, organic carbon is required. In the physical, aggregation is the most important. Solute flow and all those is possible through aggregation, so that is also soil organic matter. That's why biochar is important, because biochar is bringing carbon to the soil, and that carbon we may think that remains a kind of a black carbon, but that becomes a part of the soil matrix. Why it becomes a part of soil matrix, you can see over here. When biochar is there, now what kind of properties it is actually showing? Chemical properties, because of its high functional groups, that functional groups are reacting with the, there is a whole lot of reactions taking place with the all the reactive elements like phosphorus, like micronutrients, all those things. Then it is actually providing high pH, so there can be a self-liming effect of biochar application, and this may be very important for acidic coarse texture soil. Then there is a possibility of definitely high carbon sequestration, high nutrient exchange. Then as a soil emulierant, how it can please go back, just let me explain a little bit, please. So these are some of the important properties which is actually bringing biochar into the center of everything. You see here, Environmental remediation. I will show a slide that what kind of reactions are taking place with different sorption, partitioning, then high metal reduction and immobilizations, then complexations because of the functional group it is taking place, and then physical properties because of high surface area, porosity and surface charge, and high water holding capacity. That's why it is somebody says it may turn out to be a panacea, but all panacea cannot be obtained because there is a advocacy, there is a policy, and there is a application part of it, the social part of it. It may be a very good thing in the making, but application into the soil and its maintenance, and these are other issues which are actually preventing it to become a kind of a revolutionary things. Next. Now, that's why we say that biochar is, even in our lifetime, we have seen biochar in the different form as a charcoal is actually playing so much part in industrial and other things. And some people who are working on in physics and others, they know that how biochar or black carbon is acting on a different role in our lives as a water purification system, as a catalysis, and all other issues. And now we are bringing it to agriculture in order to not only for crop cultivation, not only for soil ameliorant, but also as a feed, as a absorber of certain materials, the waste product or certain products which can bring in the values to those, like absorbing urines in the cow urines in the biochar, and then during the course of composting, there is a greenhouse gas emissions, and how biochar can decrease that, and also how nitrate leaching, which is prevalent in most of these areas in high where there is a paddy cultivation in West Godavari district, Ludhiana, certain districts where there is a huge fertilizer application, how biochar can prevent those going into the groundwater. How can this prevent? Even in the pit where we are actually saving our cow dungs and everything, a biochar application, how this can save all the nutrients which are going down the drain and going into our potable water system. So that kind of things can be. So biochar, you can, if you see this slide, not only in terms of plant productivity, soil biological properties, it is definitely improving, but microbial abundance and functioning, it is improving. That if you go on increasing the dose of biochar, these are actually happening. Availability of toxic chemicals decreasing, soil organic matter and carbon sequestration increasing, nitrate leaching losses decreasing, water holding capacity increasing, nitrate and nitrous oxide and methane emissions decreasing, pH, EC increasing. So all the good things are there. The question is where and how, because soils have got a lot of variability, and we should always say that if biochar has to be started, it has to be started from the acid soil regions, it has to started from the coarse texture soil. In the neutral soil, in the high clay soil, it not be showing such a good results like vertisols. But if you apply it in an amphisol, if you apply it in the altisols, oxysols, if you apply it in the acid soil regions of the hilly regions, these may play wonder, because they have got liming properties and they have got all other properties which can prevent nutrients to be lost and moisture to be retained. So these are some of the important things. So where soil physical properties, high negative charge of biochar promotes soil aggregation and structure, decrease bark density, improve soil workability, reduces labor and tractor tillage, positive effect on crop productivity by retaining available moisture due to its high porosity. Next, sir. Just go on fast. Lowers bark density, water holding capacity, then better soil aggregation and lower albedo value because there is an absorption, but improvement in the infiltration in the surface soil, And we always find that if it can be applied in the 15 centimeter of the soil, there is a lot of benefits we can get in terms of physical parameters. And also it adds soil mineral nitrogen. Now, somebody said that whether it is recalcitrant, we understand, but initial few months or initial few days, it actually gives somehow some kind of dissolution takes place, and the pre-treatment which is given in the industry for making charcoal as an activated charcoal. But in case of biochar, what is happening? When it goes into soil, within a few months, it becomes activated. So initial few years, because some kind of reactions are happening in the surface, and it is actually surface area is increasing, porosity is increasing, some kind of interaction is going on, and it is becoming much more activated within a few months. And when it becomes activated, it becomes a source of reactions of most of the soil components. Next. So and other also enhance the fertilizer use efficiency. Now fertilizer use efficiency in the sense those fertilizers which are not, which are mobile, like nitrogen, nitrate, like potassium, they can be actually protected somewhat, but there has to be make a balance, because it is protected. Sometimes what happens, if we impregnate biochar with some kind of a soluble fertilizer, soluble nitrogen, it may be holding that nitrogen such a long it may not be released because of the high protective power of the biochar. So it is very difficult. We have to make a balance between these things. Liming effect has been proved beyond doubt. I will show some of the slides which will show that how it can actually improve the soil. And it can act as a tool for soil fertility, not directly but indirectly. Like it, if it improves the acidity, if it ameliorate the acidic soils, the calcium, magnesium, and other nutrient activity or other nutrient content will automatically improve. Nitrification, because of the lethal concentration of the aluminium in acid soils, these acid soils become such a bad material. But when it is actually, when biochar is given, it actually reduces the exchangeable aluminum content and increases the calcium content, because this material has got a lot of hydroxides and oxides of calcium, magnesiums, and other metals which are basically liming materials. They have got very huge carbonate, calcium carbonate equivalents. So here you can see that when we increases, when we apply biochar in the acid soil, the soil pH increases. It increases so drastically with the increasing dose that it has increased. And if you can see over here also that electrical conductivity increases. The only point now electrical conductivity is increasing means it is actually dissolving some of the biochar and making some of the nutrients and minerals from the biochar available in the soil. So it is not totally recalcitrant if it is actually produced within 400-500 temperature. Biochar amendment elevated exchangeable calcium magnesium. It is our own research from the research of Indian Institute of Soil Science. We have shown that exchangeable calcium magnesium, which is exchangeable calcium, is the backbone of all the soil. The soil maintains its integrity and its buffering capacity, everything because of the calcium content. Like nitrogen is maintaining the atmospheric integrity. Similarly, calcium is maintaining the integrity of the soil as is, and that's why most of the conditioners contain calcium. So next. Next, please. Okay, so you can see exchangeable calcium concentration also increases, exchangeable sodium concentration increase, but sodium beyond a point we should not go, but Certainly, this is not so much because it is in terms of 0.1, 0.2 to 0.3. But here you can see the potassium and calcium, they are in the form of 4, 5 centimole per kg. So you try to see that although sodium is not a very good element as far as the condition of the soil is concerned, physical condition is concerned, but it is also increasing. In and available P concentration. The only point is this biochar can decrease the concentration of available P in soils because it has got a high ligand exchange because of so much of functional group in the biochar. What happens that functional group through chemisubstitution, through other forms of ligand exchange, ion exchange becomes adsorbed on the surface of the biochar. Now you can see over here that how biochar can make such a big effect in the reduction of the pollution through heavy metals. What kind of reactions are taking place? Liming effect is there because there is a huge amount of calcium, magnesium, oxides, hydroxide. This cationic attraction is taking place through these functional groups. The cationic attractions as well as anionic attractions. Ion exchanges are taking place between these ions and cations and anions. Then there are redox reactions. Because of the porosity, the oxygen availability will be higher. So redox interactions will also take place. Apart from that, there are physiosubstitutions because of the high surface area. It's a high surface area has got because for example clay is a high surface area, organic matter has a high surface area. Similarly biochar, when it puts into the soil, this has got a slightly higher structure, higher size, but when it puts into the soil it gets fragmented and fragmented, it surface area increases, it becomes a very good candidate for physiosubstitution. So all those properties are getting accelerated because of the properties of the biochar. It has also indirectly affecting soil biological properties, but there has been found that the microbial community structure changes biochar application. If there is a huge application of biochar, there is a question, there is some kind of a community change. The bacteria count may go down and fungi count may go up. That kind of research, next please. And these are the kind of things happening when biochar is becoming a part of the soil. Then this kind of interactions with the organisms are taking place. There will be some organisms which will be averse to, because the biochar is not having aromatic ring, so they are not actually the feeding material for the biochar, but they are a very good habitat. So that's why there is a kind of a interaction which is positive as well as negative. So there will be within time, there will be, if there is a huge application of biochar, there will be some kind of a changes in the community structure of the biota. Next, and that has been shown in one of the slides. Next please. This one, that initially the bacteria population was so high, but with passage of time, if you go on incubating with the biochar, and there is a predominance of the and succession of the fungi in place of bacteria.
Dr.
That
Biswas,
kind
can we wind it up in the next 3
yeah,
minutes? I'm
I
sure
think,
there are a lot of questions.
I think it is just end.
Yeah.
Next please. Just go on fast. So some of these changes, some of the researchers have already shown. Next please. Okay, so I have come to the conclusion. So it catalyzes microbial and abiotic processes in the rhizosphere, decreasing the activation energy for abiotic and abiotic reactions, which can increase nutrient mineralization and facilitate nutrient uptake. Higher microbial activities led to accelerated turnover of organic matter, which enhances nutrient supply. Biochar reduces the availability of heavy metals, increases plant resistance to disease, improves resilience to environmental stresses. The catalytic ability of biochar changes as it ages in soil through oxidation and interactions with minerals, microbes, soil fauna, and organic matter. So I always say that this is a very good material to be applied to the soil, but we have to look into the application part of it and how it goes into that. And this is a kind of a biochar solution, and pyrolysis is the backbone of that solution. It has been presented whether it is climate change, whether it is renewable energy, and whether it is soil and agriculture, that biochar can play a pivotal role in future agriculture. And we have to understand how biochar can come into play as far as alternative agricultures are concerned. Nowadays, we are talking about natural farming, we are talking about organic agriculture, whether biochar can find a place in those agriculture, that is also a question mark. But in case of modern conventional agriculture, biochar can be a boon for agriculture if it is brought in the right manner through scientific understanding and through the results of scientific researches. Thank you very much for patient hearing. Thank you.
For goodness sake, Dr. Bishwas would have missed all this information if your slides were not shared. So thank you. I mean, it was timely that you were able to, mail it to me, and all of us have benefited out of it. Without taking much time, I would actually request Dr. Bindu as well as Dr. Priyadarshini to host this, because Dr. Priyadarshini from the previous presentation, as well as Dr. Bindu now. So Dr. Bindu, the floor is yours, please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Biswas. I think this was a very, very informative presentation from you for all of us. And actually, yeah. Actually, what comes most to my mind is, and this is something I've been talking to Kshitij about. There is so much research, good documentation on biochar and its properties and its functions when as an application. The burning question is, how do we manage to make this available to farmer to actually bring back India's degraded soils, especially acidic soils? And the questions which come to my mind is, for instance, would be a good amount of biochar application per hectare to acidic soils? And what sort of depth are we looking at when you apply the biochar? You said something about making sure that it's available at the tree root zone. So let me start with these two questions, and then we can open up the floor to get more questions from participants.
Bindu, there are already many questions in the chat box. Do you want to go through them quickly so both the speakers will be able to respond?
Sure. I'll have to slide through. Kshitij, if you have got the questions, you want to read them out? I'm trying to skim through the chat box.
But let me go into these questions, 3 questions, very important questions. As far as application part of it and how it will be made available to the farmers, and we are not only, as I said in my presentation, that it may turn out to be a panacea, but it has to go to the patient. How can we take it to the patient which actually it needs this material? That is a very difficult question to answer, and this is linked, as I said, that today in the newspaper there was a good advertisement by the Safe Soil by Sadhguru and others. There was one point it has brought, my notice has gone into that. They have talked about carbon credit to the farmers. There has to be a simplified version of carbon credit given to the farmers. Now, what we are doing today is subsidizing the farmers. We are not incentivizing the farmers. Now, in Glasgow climate change meeting, we have promised something, we have committed something, that we have to have zero land degradation, we have to have carbon neutrality in our system. But if you go to the real situation, in the ground situation, still, as far as carbon credit is concerned, and incentivization of those farmers which are actually thinking of innovative farming by increasing the carbon content of their soil, whether it is through biochar application or whether it is through conservation agriculture and other procedures, they are not getting any benefit out of that. So the first and foremost thing is that there has to be a policy decision that carbon credit has to be given to the farmers who are practicing this kind of uh, practices. Otherwise, uh, it will be very difficult to penetrate into the farming community, that every farmer will be applying this biochar, because another thing is that making of biochar and what kind of um, business model or what kind of model we can present before the farmers, that's a question, and that's I cannot immediately answer. But as I have gone through all these presentation by ICRAF and then GIZ, they are trying to bring about some producer group and making some business model and try to convince that those materials which are lying on their fields, how they can be a part of the making of biochar, those kind of woody materials which are not decomposable and farmers are really not able to, how they can be utilized in their farm, because those materials, and how can farmer be convinced that how their soil is going to be improved. The question is that sometimes farmers go for those kind of things which are the advantage is seen very easily. But if you go for carbon to make carbon credit, and if you want to make the soil carbon rich, it cannot happen overnight. It cannot happen within a few years. You have to have at least a few years time for application of those materials, and then at the end of 5 years, 10 years, you will be able to get those benefits. But initial transitional phase, you may not get all those benefits, and those benefits will not be uh, immediately seen by the farmers. So that is the first question I was trying to answer. The second thing is the dose. If you look at the literature worldwide, it's a very high dose of biochar has been talked about. Now they have divided the soils into three groups. One is the acidic soil. In acidic soil, any amount of biochar will work. Whether, but in the neutral soil, there has to be a better higher dose, and in the pH high pH soil, whatever application you make, if it is a high clay soil, the benefit of biochar application may not be immediate. So we always say that application has to be made to the coarse textures, acidic soils to acid soils regions, where they will get immediate benefit, because poverty is so much linked with the acidity of the soils. So biochar can be a good candidate for a liming material, and those kind of areas it can be very good. And third question you was how much depth of it can be. See, generally we always manipulate the soil, whether through tillage operations and through anything. We always talk about 0 to 15 to 20 centimeter soil. So we do not go beyond that, because see, sometimes people go for a huge ton rotavator kind of a practice, but generally all the operations are done within 0 to 15, yeah, 20 centimeter of soils. So our application has to be within that, and it has to be mixed, because I say that what is the problem? The bar density of soil is about 1.2 gram per cc. Okay, 1.2, 1.3, like that. But the bulk density of biochar is a very light material, 0.6 to 0.8. So if there is a kind of a floating situation, it will go up in the surface. So it has to be intimately mixed with the soil, and then after application it should be mixed with the soil, and when there will be a kind of a floating situation, submerged condition, there has to be some kind of a protection of those materials which are floating on the surface. So therefore we say that generally we should apply it to the upland crop, and we should not go for those kind of crop which is actually maintaining water for a long time. Although in Orissa and other conditions, there is a practice of application of biochar in the paddy soils also, but there the care has to be taken that when there is a submerged condition, the water should not move from one field to another field. Otherwise, a lot of fine material of biochar will go away with the water.
Thank you for those details, Kshitij. I just see that there are 6 minutes left, but I did want to have a quick clarification, and maybe I'll address this to Dr. Akil. Sir, Dr. Biswas, we are looking at not so much getting carbon credits for the farmers which you're pursuing, but which is a long battle. But also we believe that with biochar, you immediately see increase in crop yields. So if within a year we can see increase in crop yields, I think that would be enough evidence for the farmer to take up biochar. Is that correct?
Should I respond on that?
Yes, Dr. Akil, the
Yeah,
question
yeah.
was for you.
So, I mean, so far learned from the many studies done throughout the world, what I understand that in first year, normally the effect of biochar doesn't appear very good, which is a rare condition. If it is done with very limited or controlled conditions are there, then sometimes we get this result. But at the farmers field, normally it should not appear, or it should not it is not happening. So we cannot see and we cannot show them as well, and showcase them to the farmers. It's the second year we can see some sort of results as a result of mixed with the other nutrients. It is showing some greater results, availability of nutrition with the help of porosity, high water availability. It is showing some results to the crop, the next crop. So in first years normally it doesn't appear.
Okay. Thank you so much for it.
Yeah.
Kshitij, in the interest of time, I leave it to you to take it forward, this presentation. I don't know if
Though we can stretch it, for, see, we've got one more quick presentation by GIZ, Jitendra of GIZ. He said he's got about 4 or 5 slides to talk about the Pro Soil project of GIZ. Now, there are some very important questions here. Some, of course, I've also requested all the participants to log into ibbm.org.in and to register yourself for more information. But also, for us to create this platform much more robustly, where there can be information that can be shared. But Dr. Bindu, do you want to relate to a couple of questions which you think are important?
Yes, actually, Kshitij, I did glance at the questions, and most of it actually is about the dosage, the frequency of the dosage, how many per, and the one question which is also very pertinent is about the quality of biochar. And one of the things India has to tackle is starting to somehow give a quality standard on biochar, so that people are not misled about it and don't lose faith on this very potential application to soil.
Yeah, I think there was this question I quickly wanted to respond to, Bindu, this last point that you just made. Of course, we are working on probably looking at the European standards, a very progressive set of standards that they have. Right. and trying to advocate with the government of India as well as state governments to adopt some progressive ones which are relevant for our country. Now, having said that, the quality issue should not centralize power in the hands of a few corporate sector who are able to sell and label these products,
Right.
because it has to be with the farmers. Accessibility, in fact, even in terms of being able to produce it qualitatively, should be with farmers more or less. But definitely quality is an issue that has already been mentioned both by Dr. Vishwas and Dr. Akil. Dr. Priyadarshini also mentioned ash being sold as biochar with absolutely no carbon content. Yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Kshitij, for all the participants who have posed questions, here is my suggestion. Also being part of RRA network, and which is very much a strong supporter of this IBBN, we can take up these questions and immediately create a FAQ, frequently asked questions, and give the answers. I believe we do have the answers now to the questions that have been posed in the chat box. So let's use this to generate our FAQs and publish them on the website.
That's right. And I also want to thank Dr. Priyadarshini Karve, because she's responding to all these chats as much as possible. And I think one very crucial, go on.
Given the time constraint, I thought that might be a better option.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you so much, Dr. Karve.
I think this very important issue that you just responded to, Dr. Priyadarshini, was on the quality itself, on how farmers, we do call them rudimentary technology, but it's technology nonetheless. Just like in a laboratory, when we were in chemistry labs as students, there are drum kilns which are being used to make biochar by farmers. And there is a system that is followed, and so it's like a laboratory. It's happening very systematically. What is missing, and is the ability for farmers to be able to look at the quality of their product, to verify the quality of their product. And this is where I think the gap between the academia, the government, and the farmers is staring at us. So you believe you're doing biochar, you're producing biochar and applying it, then it becomes faith rather than science. And we don't want such a scientific platform to be based on faith. It has to be with scientific rigor, but also, as many suggestions have come in the chat box, that the adaptability should also be encouraged. So scientific analysis as well as the adoption bit. Did I hear Bindu or Priyadarshini say anything about it? Yeah, Bindu, yeah.
No, just slightly changing the topic, but it's a very good question. Is there, Kshitij, a generic email ID at IBBN where people can post their questions to?
Yes.
Would you want to put it on the chat box? Yeah, Panish, if you could put that in the chat box.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Panish, just read it out, and then you can also put it on the chat box. Panish, what is the email ID?
Contact us at ibbn.org.in.
Contact us at ibbn.org.in. Okay, he'll post it on the chat box also.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you. This is still not the conclusion. We'll wait for the next 5 minutes to do that. Right. And by then, I request Jitendra of GIZ to make a quick presentation, please.
Yeah. Kshitij, before we move on, I request once again all the participants to log into the IBBN to create a profile so that they can see the answers and keep in touch with us. Thank you.
Yeah, Jitendra?
Yes, Kshitij, I'm just loading my presentation. Yeah. Okay. I hope it's visible now.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so I think we had a very good overview by Dr. Vishwas and Dr. Akil. So I'll just give a quick overview what GIZ under ProSoil did for biochar and what we propose to do for next 2 years. So as you all are aware, ProSoil project working in 7 countries. In India, mostly we are working in Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, and main partner NABARD and many other government departments in both the states and institutes like ICRAF, IISS, state agriculture universities. So ProSoil, we started in 2015, and initial more focus on ground implementation for soil water conservation, and now it's gradually moving towards climate action, circularity, and finally that broad scale implementation of agricultural approaches. Under this climate action and circularity, we are promoting many bioresources, including biochar, compost, many small farmer practices on ground, and promoting them through this initiative to our NGO partners. So I'm quickly. So we did this biochar started in 2018 with our NGO partners, Buy Up Water in Maharashtra and FES in Madhya Pradesh, where main focus on promotion of biochar and awareness and how biochar can be produced at local level by farmers, by farmer producer organizations. We build capacities of NGOs. We had a lot of knowledge exchange with ICRA, IISS for our NGO partners, our FPOs, which resulted into there are now various field-based evidences at various locations through demo plots, the farmers' exposure to the other demo plots, and the peer-to-peer extension by farmers. So what we found, there is a lot of interest among farmers, even the farmer producer organizations, our NGOs on this biochar. Then to promote, like we found the individual level production and then its application, it's happening everywhere. But we develop business models for production of biochar and its marketing and sale. So under our ProSoil, we formed farmer producer organization at our NGO locations, and these farmer producer organizations now producing the biochar. So we have developed a business model for both farmer producer organizations and as Dr. Priyadarshini mentioned, for urban local bodies also from garden waste, how they can produce biochar. We conducted the feasibility studies with various urban local bodies and FPOs, and we came up with the 5 business models. So how the biochar can be produced, then mixing with the compost and then sold to the farmer. This VCM potential as mentioned by Dr. Bishwas. So we are also working with one of our NGO partner and 3 FPOs who harness the VCM potential. So biochar is one of the main component we are looking at there, how this biochar initiatives we conducted or farmers doing, and in future how it can contribute more to the VCM for the FPOs and farmer. So we have now successful and reliable business models. One of our FPOs in Yavatmal is almost produced 30 tons of biochar this season, around 300 tons of feedstock cotton feedstock they use, and 30 tons of biochar is produced by the FPO with very good quality. So now we also promoting to market this biochar. We have Harit app for the city compost marketing with urban local bodies and farmer producer organizations. So we'll use this digital instrument, our app also for the marketing and sale. We also have a climate monitor to measure the impacts of biochar on soil carbon and this thing. This also we are doing. And then further we, I think my screen is lost or is visible.
It is visible, but not moving. Not moving.
No, it's on screen. I'm just presenting the same. So research studies already explained by Dr. Bishwas sir and Dr. Akil. So I don't go into. So we have now validated conclusion recommendations to use not beyond dosages, but the impacts and how it can be used. So these are the interventions we are doing right now, and also we are proposed to continue this with our NGO partners and other partners also and promote the biochar. So this business model, I wanted to present in detail how this biochar can be produced by FPO. They can collect the feedstock from the nearby farmers and they can use that, and it can be then mixed with the compost and promoted. The biochar, so what are our learnings and our experiences on that? So it should be produced to locally available feedstock. So the cost of transportation of feedstock, I am talking about the APO level model, how APO can do it should be locally available feedstock. So they can around 10-kilometer radius, they can transport, they can purchase from the farmer at a nominal rate, 1 rupees per kg. So that's what our experience. The farmers are ready to sell. They're interested also, and APO can collect and then produce the biochar. The technology here, we have a lot of challenges, the emissions, local technology, there are emissions are very high, some of the technology, so that we need to do some intervention, how technology can be, like less emissions can be there. Recovery, percentage of recovery also, because 25 to 30% is general recovery now, but I think it should be more. The cost of production also, it depends on technology, which technology you're using, the transportation, the fuel, and it should be easy to handle because the target group we are looking at farmers or farmer producer organizations. So And scale obviously depends on the scale also, at what scale you want to, individual scale, commercial scale, or at FPO level. So these are the challenges and need to answer. That's what we found. So applications, in terms of application, we got a lot of recommendations. It should be mixed with any other available locally organic material. So this network also we mentioned bioresources. So we tried with compost, cow urine, prom, and this demo plots and crop trial done based on these various bioresources available in the region locally. We found the major challenge, the standards. That I think already we have discussed that there are no standards available for biochar. So marketing is also a challenge for that. So if you want to pack the biochar and sell by farmers or this thing, that also a big challenge. Recommended dose also, it's not very constant everywhere. It's different recommendations, and I think it will come now that a lot of crop trials happen. So some recommendations can do. And for production and promotion, it can be done at individual level, community scale, village. But what we see that it should be commercially done at FPO, farmer producer organization, because they are also looking at new businesses. And we found this is an opportunity where they can do it with the biochar, and they can mix with any other compost or organic material and sell to the farmer. So FPOs can play major role for promotion of biochar among the farmers in their region. So this basically role of what we are looking at when we thought on this formation of IBBM Indian Biochar Network. It should be business development ideas for the long-term sustainability. Like there should be technical support by IBBM to the FPOs, any other interested parties, private players. Some grant-based models can be implemented through IBBM for the biochar and bioresource. In view of there is a lot of talk happening on natural farming, knowledge and exchange. IBBM should act as a major knowledge and exchange platform for biochar in India along with bioresources, and aggregator for VCM if possible in future. Like we are doing with FPO now for the VCM biochar. So IBBM can also in future play that role and promote and support the business models for FPO. So now we can also think how FPOs can be roped into this network and get some support from IBBM. And then based on our feasibility study, we have appointed Ernst & Young. So what are different finance models available for IBBM? Can be membership fees, cannot be only a membership fees, but consultancies, a panel of experts who can support technical expert to industries, farmers, urban local bodies, FPOs. And these are the different options we are looking for, like how this can be more sustainable. Now GIZ is and RRA network and SNEP are working together, but in future, it should be more financially sustainable and support the entire community on biochar in country. So that's the quick from our side, and over to you, Kshitij.
Thank you, Jitendra. This is the remarks in conclusion. I would say remarks at the beginning of the next phase of IBBN. First of all, I'm sure all of us have found this very, very useful. We've been very specific to biochar today, but as we mentioned earlier, this has to be looked at the context of climate change and a lot of other mitigative activities that we can take up in the agricultural sector. So this is where I think most of your questions in the chat box are also very similar to this larger reality. Having said that, there are also project limitations. And so the first phase of it has just been concluded, but we are looking forward to the next phase. And so there are plans to formalize this network. And so we would welcome your inputs on how you think we should, this network should form itself, the form and shape that it takes going forward. Number two, there should be field evidences. So we have narrowed down on 6 states across India where field evidences and networking with farmers, and especially this discussion that was being put forth about adaptability and how you ensure, not adaptability, but how farmers can adopt this as a practice much more rigorously, will be taken up in about six different states. The third, of course, is research. Research would be a national research, but also ensure that IBBM becomes a platform for exchange of information from across the world. And with available technology, as well as with the kind of experience that we have, very specific to the South Asia, we have a lot of contribution to make in the development of the literature globally. And so it's not just receiving information from the West, but to be able to create this narrative at the global level and the opportunity that our researchers have is something which the IBBN will want to amplify. And the fourth plan, of course, then is directly related to network building. And as I mentioned, a network building has to be multi-tiered, and it serves multiple purposes. If we are talking about production systems at a very decentralized level, then we are going back to backyard furnaces. And backyard furnaces have been analogically used both with Gandhi as well as with the Chinese planners. When it came out of the yoke of the British colony. And backyard furnaces have been mentioned as part of our anti-colonial struggle. And if these backyard furnaces can now be analogous with the production of biochar, especially in rural areas, that is going to be extremely useful. And so this research is not just about the science of biochar, but it is also about the larger climate mitigative roles that farmers as well as researchers play. So should we be incentivizing them? And there's already carbon trading, as a business that has emerged. And even with, when this message about today's program went out, I had at least 2 people from, this carbon trading companies who got in touch seeking more information. Right. So this research should be, multidisciplinary. And as very clearly mentioned by the 2 speakers today, as well as Dr. Priyadarshini and Dr. Bindu, this information on biochar is very closely related to the information analysis that we do with climate change. In climate change, they say there are 3 levels of information. The first level of information is information about climate change that we're very well aware of. We know the antecedents, we know the causalities, we know the processes, and we know the impact. And hence we are able to make good projections as well as policy briefs on it. So the first level of information is very deep understanding of what is already happening. The second level of information is on our observation. And climate change, we know that it is very dynamic. We are crossing tipping points. The Indian summer and Indian monsoon, as one of the 11 tipping points, are already impacted. Indian summer and Indian monsoon. Now, this level of information is about, we know that there is something happening, but we do not know why it's happening. Yeah, and there are also things in biochar of this particular level of comprehension. And the third level of information is that we do not even know a lot of things about climate change, just like we don't know so many things about biochar as of now. So the research component would require, it is essentially multidimensional and multidisciplinary, because there are these 3 levels of research that need to be conducted, and which would require people from various sectors. So this is where I think barefoot scientists have to be prepared, and farmers in the program should be trained to be, barefoot scientists, to be able to produce and to be able to analyze, as well as to network with local academic institutions related to agriculture and science and chemistry. Now, these are some of the brief plans that we've been able to make. We have detailed it in the document itself, but you can see that the trajectory that we want to take, if this trajectory is indeed successful, it'll make a substantial contribution, to climate change, as well as transformation in agricultural systems in India. So the potential for something like IBBN is enormous, and but then we want to make it as democratic as it should be, because we will be able to propose this as well as to hold on to various levels of intervention only if there is good enough participation of people. So this platform is also about creating a space for people to voice their experiences in an organized manner, of course, in an organized manner. So there should be some method to a certain madness, to the madness of people contributing through their opinions and experiences. And having said that, I would also want to conclude by thanking all the participants today. IBBN.org.in. This is the website, and please register yourself. Panish has also, left, the ID in the chat box for people who would want to contact us on email. Contact us at ibbn.org.in. And so this is essentially part of the process of co-creating something as important as IBBN. So it's really not about IBBN as an entity which is trying to administer this workshop or other processes, but on how we can co-create this at the national level and contribute to this narrative at a global scale. Even as we are working with farmers as well as with governments influencing policies here. So I take this opportunity to thank RRAN. We've got Sabya, we've got other colleagues of Bindu. I still work in RRAN. For letting this emerge from the midst of all the conversation that RRAN is having. RRAN has been primarily responsible for this. People are thanking us for having organized this. Secondly, I would want to thank Snehakunja, our colleagues who've been hosting this in Karnataka for a long time. Now, finally, it's about the speakers as well as the respondents. Dr. Priyadarshini Karve, Dr. Bindu, thanks for hosting this, hosting the the response bit of today's event. And I'm sure you would agree that we can make it much more vibrant going forward. Probably we need to formalize a more regular sharing of information platform, which is much more dynamic and informative for all, because it's still in a nascent stage. And then of course we had Dr. Akil who spoke about the yield and the yield impact of biochar. Farmers feel much more encouraged than scientists do. And Dr. Akil also saw that when we met some farmers in Aurangabad recently. They are much more positive about applying biochar. And while there is still caveats and caution from the academia, they're saying, look, it's very useful, but then we still have a lot more to learn. And so Dr. Akil is part of that group of people in India, very few people in India who've come together looking at how this can produce, how can it can impact yield. And finally, Dr. Bishwas, I think it was a very comprehensive presentation. And one of the things that I was thinking of was on how IBBN should actually be hosting physical training programs. Probably at IISS in Bhopal, or probably elsewhere in a decentralized manner to make it much more cost effective. So if we do it in different divisions of the country where you have aggregations of states, representatives from states, certain states coming together, and we have resource people like Dr. Akil and Dr. Bishwas hosting it. That would be a kind of an information revolution on biochar and bioresources, because there's so much of information that he had to share and so many questions that are still unanswered. So this is where I think IBBN comes in as a platform of creating these opportunities for cross-sharing, as well as organized training programs in different parts of the world. So having said that, I would thank Dr. Bishwas for his contribution today. Thank you, all of you. I saw that I was counting, there were more than 120 participants, 100 participants on the link and YouTube, and more than 20 participants viewing our YouTube channel. So anything else, Dr. Bishwas and Dr. Akil? Any last words from your side?
Thank you very much for having me with you. And it was nice experience for all of us. And I think You are right that there are certain questions which we could have answered also. And it is always learning from both ways. We are, because certain, and I, as a student of soil science, I am really learning every day that what is really happening inside the soil when biochar is applied. So my concentration is in that. So the other side of the studio, I may not be knowing much, and that will be covered by Akil and others. But I am trying to understand soil. Thank you very much for having me, and giving me this opportunity. And our colleagues will also join you in future for
Thank you.
such interactions.
Thank you. Thank you. There's a Dr. Meghna who asked if IBBN is also into authenticating the standard itself. Dr. Meghna, we have not gotten into it so far, but that discussion is on. But we do not want to co-opt, activities which are already being done by others. We might have to work with them to ensure that it is happening in a qualitative manner. Dr. Akil, any last words, please?
Yeah, I mean, thank you very much, Kshitij, for you calling me for this great event. And I'm thankful to all of you, RRA Network, IBBN, and colleagues from GIZ and other colleagues who I may not know directly, but fortunately, I can see that a lot of people over here listening to all of us and trying to gather information. I'm sorry I could not answer many questions, but yes, if time would have been given to me enough, that's why I've tried to make it fast forward, but unfortunately I couldn't get time to discuss much on that. But yes, we will discuss sometimes at any other platform, or anytime anyone who wants to contact me directly through you or something, I can answer any question if he has. And thanks to especially Bindu and Priyadarshini for coordinating these sessions. Lastly, thanks to all of you. Thanks.
Thank you, Akil. No, I think your presentation was, of course, it was hurried, and for lack of time. But then that's essentially why we also probably need to have it in Delhi and other places where we have more and more physical meetings going on.
Correct.
Yeah. So thank you, GIZ. We've got Jitendra and probably other colleagues from GIZ who are participating in this, and their foresight, in being able to create something like this, is highly appreciative. And so they are open, to talk about the second phase on how to take this forward and scale this up and deepen the involvement much more. But then we also have to kind of diversify and see how specific activities can also be supported by other resources, even bilateral agencies. But at the present time, Jitendra, thank you so much. You represent an organization which the day before yesterday, we had a stakeholder meeting in Bangalore. And then there were more than 70 participants. And we suddenly had a person from GIZ who just walked in. And he got to know about it through the FAO. And he was thrilled to look at the spirit of, the people, the spirit of, within the meeting itself, people discussing and contributing to the process of taking this forward at the state level. So thanks, Jitendra. Anything that you would want to say?
No, Kshitij, thanks everybody from GIZ, Akil, Dr. Akil, Dr. Vishwasu. We already had interaction in Aurangabad. He was also there. So thank you everybody, and looking forward for more guidance and interaction with you in next sessions. Yeah.
Let's do that. Thank you, friends. I'm leaving. Thanks, Archana. Thanks, everyone. So let's end the session now and take our conversation forward. Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you.